What you're looking at here is a single ANX part from my MONTAGE M. There are a huge number of controls, but we have unlimited space, so I don't need to cram everything into a tiny box. We just need to scroll around to get to other areas of the system. On the left, we have the ANX settings, including unison and aging, and then below that is the wave folder and its envelope. Next, we have the pitch controls, and then the mixer where we can balance the levels of the oscillators and noise. The second column contains the 3 oscillators, where you can choose the waveform, adjust the octave and fine pitch, and make use of the extensive modulation matrix. Each of these parameters can be modulated by the oscillator envelope or LFO by adjusting the appropriate depth control. Moving over again, we find the part level filters, where we can choose the filter type and adjust all of their parameters, including the filter envelope and LFO. Below this are the amplitude controls, and then at the bottom of the column we have various part level controls including the 3-band EQ, insertion effect selection, note and velocity ranges and more. As you'd expect, all the controls respond to dragging with the mouse or trackpad, and as you adjust controls, the human readable value for that control will either show as a hovering tooltip or in a window next to the control if the value is useful at all times. And of course, more importantly, adjusting controls results in the corresponding parameter instantly updating on the MONTAGE hardware. Let's go and take a look at the filter LFO for this ANX part. We can select the waveform and see the graph update both on the KDx interface and on the synth. Then we can adjust the speed, the delay, the fade in and phase, and see all of those parameters being updated in real time on the MONTAGE. The depth controls show their adjustment in cents on the KDx interface. The whole interface is vector-based, so if at any point you want finer control over a parameter, just zoom in. One thing that is particularly annoying to edit on MONTAGE is envelopes, and I've solved that in several ways. Firstly, all envelopes are represented with sliders rather than knobs, so it's easy to see familiar envelope shapes, which is a real failing of knobs, but more importantly, adjusting any envelope control within KDx will open up an interactive graph with draggable points, so you can adjust multiple parameters at the same time. To get rid of the envelope pop-up, just click on an unrelated part of the interface or use a different control. You've probably noticed the part selector at the top of the screen, which has illuminated parts 1 to 5 showing that those are active. I can access parts 9 to 16 from there too, just by scrolling within the selector, and you'll notice that I have something sitting in part 9 which we'll look at later. Part 1 is also ANX, so let's switch over there and we can see all the controls change their values to show the settings for this EP and guitar part. Switching back to part 4 and the control settings change back to those for that part. So that's ANX, which is actually the engine with the fewest controls in MONTAGE. Part 5 is FMX, so let's select that now. FMX requires a completely different interface from ANX, so the display updates instantly to show the FMX editor with controls for FM color, the second LFO, and the part level pitch, along with all 8 of the operators, which are arranged in horizontal strips like on a CS80, so that the controls for each operator are vertically aligned with those for every other operator. Outside of ANX, we get the traditional Yamaha envelopes with separate controls for time and level. The draggable points on the KDx pop-up graph make these way easier to use than selecting individual parameters on the MONTAGE screen or even playing with the display knobs on MONTAGE M. The operator level envelope is a special case because the hold and release levels are linked. Not a problem though, moving either one of those will adjust the other. Of course, if you want to adjust a single dimension of the envelope, you can still use the controls instead of dragging the points. FMX is a big, complex synthesis engine, but this interface makes it as easy as possible to get around it, with all the settings available and visible at all times. Of course, the heart of Yamaha synthesizers for many years has been the sample-based AWM2 engine, and for just as long, ignorant people have said that Yamaha synthesizers using AWM2 are just romplers. Let's select part 2, which uses AWM2, and show just how wrong they are. Like the FMX engine, I've laid out each element in a horizontal strip, roughly representing the signal flow. So here we have a single AWM2 element, and as you can see, the controls go on and on and on. Each element in an AWM2 part is a complete and discrete synthesizer in its own right, and in fact there's more control available to a single AWM2 element than many other synthesizers have in total, and Montage has 8 of them per part. And that's even before we talk about Montage M, which can have as many as 128 elements per part, which is a frankly mind-boggling amount of power. You can choose a waveform for each element by simply typing a few characters from its name, or, if you know the waveform number, you can enter that instead. At some point I'll do a demo of building an AWM2 sound using this interface, but for now let's press on. The layout here is designed to let you compare elements, so as with FMX operators, the pitch envelope for element 1 is directly above element 2, etc. But if you want to treat each element as a discrete synthesizer rather than a layer of a part, you can use the view toggle in the top left of the element to switch to a view that lets a single element stack into a more traditional synthesizer interface. Of course, Montage M supports up to 128 elements per part, so if we head over to the Element Settings panel, we can enable extended elements and set the number we need.